Hello and welcome to The Arise interview. 60 minutes of big questions about the big stories from the news and beyond, with fresh insight and critical analysis. I'm Charles Enyegolu. Coming up in the next hour, as Nigeria's social media bill goes for a public hearing at the Senate, top celebrities, as well as scores of civil society organizations, have joined tens of thousands of Nigerians in raising the alarm over the controversial bill. They say it's a major threat to free speech in Nigeria and will roll back internet freedoms in the country. But supporters of the bill insist that an overhaul of the country's internet laws will curtail fake news and the spreading of false statements, whilst enhancing security, peace and unity. We'll hear arguments for and against the bill in a moment. Now, it's seen as a cultural tipping point on how social media and the internet operates in Nigeria, one that raises the spectre of stringent new restrictions on the country's internet space. Nigeria's National Assembly, and more specifically the Senate, has been trying to restrict the power of social media and the internet through a bill that millions fear will roll back internet freedoms in the country. The proposed legislation, officially named the Protection from Internet Falsehood and Manipulation Bill, would allow Nigeria's governments to cut off internet access or block specific social media platforms such as WhatsApp, Facebook and Twitter at its own discretion. It also contains provisions prohibiting online statements considered likely to be prejudicial to national security and those which may diminish public confidence in Nigeria's government, offences that would be punishable by fines of up to $1,000 or imprisonment for up to 3 years. But across the country, celebrities, civil society organizations and ordinary people alike have raised their voices against the bill, warning that it would effectively gag free speech. Well, in a moment, we'll hear from one of Nigeria's A-list entertainers and from a top civil society body. But first, here are civil society groups protesting against the bill.
In Nigeria, young people are the opposition. Social media is the opposition. And it's only a corrupt system that will be afraid of opposition. And so now we are saying that this is our chance to speak out, and we are using this public hearing to say no. We have said no many times. Nigerian youth have used social media itself to say no. We have other laws in place for defamation, for fake news. There are laws in place already. This law to clamp down on freedom of speech and the opposition young people are putting up against corruption and governments that do not mean well for the Nigerian people are not laws that will stand quiet and let pass.
Nigerians are seriously perplexed and flabbergasted that the Senate that they pay to go and legislate on their behalf for good governance and for the development of our dear nation is there trying to gag the people when the Senate themselves or the National Assembly are looking for immunity. As we are talking now, the National Assembly is currently debating immunity for its leadership. As we're talking now, there is a bill before the National Assembly that wants to give amnesty to Boko Haram. Therefore, if you want to give amnesty to vampires and you want to protect yourself against vampires, protect yourself with immunity, why do you want to take our social immunity away?
The social media bill is draconian. Absolutely. And it should be considered dead on arrival. Absolutely. If you want to fight corruption, I really feel citizen reportage is one key to fighting corruption. Oh, yes. The mainstream media can be everywhere at the same time, but the social media can be every place at every time. Trying to shut down this space is endemic, it's retrogressive, it's oppressive in nature, and subjugate the Nigerian populace to more draconian implications.
Well, for more on the controversial social media bill, I'm joined now from our studios in Lagos by the hugely popular Nigerian rapper Jude Abaga, popularly known as Mr. Incredible or MI, and with me here in Abuja, the country director of Amnesty International, Osai Ojigho. Thank you very much indeed to both of you for being with us. And let's come straight to you first, MI, the last time I saw you was in 2010. You were performing at the Calabar Festival, and I had an interview with you. So it's a real pleasure to have you here. But let's get to the meat and potatoes of this discussion. Much as I'd like to talk about your extraordinary, incredible career, explain to us the major contents of this bill. I mean, what does it actually say that has got you sort of as angry as you are and a whole lot of other people?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on your show. It's an honor to be here and an honor to speak on behalf of the entertainment industry and a lot of my friends, a lot of the young people that are on social media. I would divide maybe the problems that most young people have with the bill into two boxes. And they're both generalizations. I mean, there's more in-depth thought behind our refusal to accept the bill. But number one is that it seems that most of the problems that the bill says it is here to address have already been addressed by laws that are in existence today. So if you spread a fake news story, you know, there are provisions for you to go to court and be tried for libel or defamation, and it's happening, and people are, you know, receiving punishment for that as we speak today. And so that raises the question, why this bill specifically? But the second thing is that the young people today just don't trust the government. We just don't trust the police. We don't trust the government arms. And giving this sort of power to a government that is prone to mistakes, is prone to covering up their tracks, you know, and not specifically this government, but generally the caliber of political representation we've had recently. I mean, we're at a time where, you know, most of, well, let me not say most, but a lot of people have been being called out for corruption, you know, there's a lot of incompetence, you know, and it's just not something that young people are prepared to trust this government with. If there is fake news, let us use the laws that are existing right now to deal with that. Let's single out those people and let them be punished. But to give the government the power to shut down the internet and social media, that is preposterous, especially when the government themselves get a lot of the stories wrong themselves. So what happens when the government says, sorry, I'm like ranting, you know, we're so passionate about it. But what happens when the government says something is fake and it actually turns out to be true? What happens in that time? You know, I think that in any shape, form, any rereading, any reimagining of it that we're prepared to accept. You know, for us, the bill must die, and the sooner the better.
Okay, well, I'm going to come to Osai Ojigho in a minute. But let me ask you this, MI, the problem that a lot of people say, because of course, you know, you've got quite a lot of people who support this bill. They say that many of these laws are old, the laws that you talked about that are already in existence, and that they should be changed. I mean, today we live in a cyber digital world, and you can't use analog laws to protect the world of today.
Yeah, well, you're correct. So things are changing, and the internet has, you know, disrupted almost everything. I personally, I am very slow to report things on Twitter because I hate fake news. I hate to be wrong. I've apologized just recently when a celebrity passed away in a helicopter crash. The initial report, and was reported by a esteemed American agency, was that another player on his team was on the plane, and I posted it, and I had to retract and apologize, and I really felt bad. But here's the thing, at its core, when people spread fake news, what they are doing is committing a crime that can happen whether it's on the internet or not. It's about communicating something that you know to be false with the intent to do damage, right? And the laws speak to that crime despite the medium. Whether I use a newspaper, whether I use I hire a town crier, the law speaks to the crime. And there's nothing about the internet that makes the crime, apart from the fact that you can say like information spreads quicker over the internet. It is not about the medium, it's about the actual crime. And our laws today speak to the crime. If we want to go back and amend the law and look at the law, hey, maybe that's something else. But to bring a completely different law that focuses on social media and then gives the government powers that, seemingly, only seem to be tying into this, what I perceive to be an agenda to shrink the civic space, to gradually single out people that don't agree with what the government is doing and want to protest, and want to speak out, and find a way to legally curtail them or warn people or make people afraid to speak their mind. It's really scary. And again, as I said, as loud as we can, we're going to scream that this bill should not pass.
Okay, stay with us, but you do have a point, because when you think about the telecoms industry, for instance, there is regulation of that system, but you can't stop someone from saying whatever he wants to say or she wants to say about a particular official over the telephone. They can say whatever they want, and you technically can't stop them. And I suppose that is the argument, Osai Ojigho, that's being advanced, that the same right should be extended to social media, and also that you've already got a cyber crime law, which was, I think, enacted in 2015, and I understand that between then and now there have been at least 3 people who've fallen victim of that law, but none of them is a cyber criminal who stole money or posted news pictures or whatever. All the people are people who were critical of government.
Yes, and we really should look at the fundamental freedoms this social media bill would attack. And you're correct that the concern is about how do we regulate the platforms, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, or even more commonly being used in our environment, WhatsApp. But the issue is you don't hit a hand with a hammer. You have to look for a proactive way in which you address the root causes of this fake news and false information, disinformation, and the dissemination. And the real reason behind this is that people we're in a world of information overload. People are dying to find the latest new thing. People want to know what's raining. So there's also a push on social media for people to be hype. So the response to the state in addressing this should be more in terms of how do we make sure the right information is out there.
Okay, let me just ask you to hold on. I'll come straight back to you, but I must take a break. You're watching the Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead as we continue our chat about Nigeria's controversial social media bill, which has gone for a public hearing before the Senate. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview. I'm Charles Aniegolu. Now, as you may know, for several months now, the Nigerian Senate has been locked in a battle with celebrities and civil society organizations, as well as ordinary Nigerians, over a proposed internet bill that restricts the power and use of social media. Many Nigerians are outraged by the proposal and say the action in the National Assembly is akin to modern-day censorship, which would adversely affect journalists, civil society organizations, news sites, bloggers, and political opposition figures. But legislators who support the bill, which is advancing through Nigeria's parliament, claim it will enhance security, peace, and unity in Africa's most populous country by curbing the spread of false statements. We'll continue our chat about all that in a moment. But first, here's some more of what was said at that Senate public hearing earlier.
What is the reason for my interest in bringing up this bill? I'm a fully stakeholder in the Nigerian projects, and I believe that Nigeria needs a legal framework that will guide our social media space. This bill is for the enactment of an act to prevent falsehood and manipulation in internet transmission and correspondences in Nigeria, to suppress falsehoods and manipulations and counter the effects of such communications and transmissions, and to sanction offenders with a view to encouraging and enhancing transparency by social media platforms using the internet correspondences. Misinformation, disinformation, and manipulation, especially on the internet, popularly known as fake news, today has become not only a virus, but an epidemic that the world is trying to kill.
This bill, in summary, seeks to pigeonhole Nigerians from freely expressing themselves. We know that the unique and most cherished unique ingredient of democratic governance is the right of the people to free expression.
That's the other side of the coin there. I think we first heard from the man who actually sponsored that bill in the National Assembly. Well, with me from our studios in Lagos, the hugely popular Nigerian rapper Jude Abaga, popularly known as Mr. Incredible or MI, and with me here in Abuja, the country director of Amnesty International, Osai Ojigho. And we're talking to you before we went on a break, Osai. Just tell us the causes that have led the Senate to propose this bill.
Well, according to what they explained at the public hearing today, it's to respond to the gamut of false information and fake news trending online, and to be able to punish those who, by their acts or by disseminating this information, actually create problems or damage people's reputations or cause situations that could affect public morality, national security. But when we delve deeper into the reasons why this bill is necessary, you find that it tends to support those who don't want information to be open, to be transparent, and to be accessible to every person in Nigeria. It's almost like as if it's a mechanism to urge people to self-censor. Because if you share information knowingly believing that this is true, does not matter. The fact is, they consider this false news, and then you could be prosecuted for it. So it's going to have a much wider net effect than the current laws that exist, which we still have issues with because there are gaps in terms of how this affects fundamental rights and freedoms, such as fair hearing, such as right to liberty, and an opportunity to be heard in a court of law and all of that. But this bill actually goes much wider than all the others have gone, and it intends to actually criminalize speaking out, sharing information. And it just baffles my mind because oftentimes when people share things on social media, majority of people is like, oh, this is interesting. I think I want somebody else to know about it. And so they share it. And they are shifting the responsibility to verify the information on ordinary people who use these services. Meanwhile, there's a lot of calls also in terms of how the platform owners, the Facebook of this world and Twitter, how do they ensure that their platforms are not hijacked by people interested in spelling hate or causing problems? So if really the issue is about false news and about fake news, then they should be looking at the root causes. Why is it getting popular? Rather than seeking to punish people who are just using the devices and using it in their everyday work and activity. So that is why it's a fundamental problem, and which we are saying right now, the Senate need not pass this bill, and they need to drop all these attempts that they find in order to gag people's voices in Nigeria. And you were at the Senate earlier. Yes, I was.
For that public hearing.
Yes.
Does it look like they're listening to what people are saying, what appears to be majority of people in the public are saying?
I think they had no choice in the matter because the room was filled. A majority of the people that were there said they were against the bill. When the floor was given for those who were for the bill, there were very few people that were able to speak articulately on these issues. So it shows that people, yes, might have had one or two bad experiences on social media, but generality of people think that the good far outweighs the bad.
Right.
And if we want to deal with fake news, we need to go to the root causes. And one step is for government to take the lead, Share information that the public is supposed to know. Be a verifiable means of information. Let people know where they need to go to if they need to confirm or verify information about the state or information about a news channel or information about organizations. And at the same time, we need to make sure that people are free to know that they can share their views without being threatened or attacked. And freedom of expression does not mean that you should only be happy to hear about things that are pleasant to you. You should also be able to hear things that might shock you, might offend your own personality, but generally that person has the right to say it and to share it.
Okay, well, let's go over to Lagos and speak to Mr. Incredible again, MI. Thank you very much indeed for your patience. But what I was going to say to you is that the argument from the other side is that it is people often like yourself that this bill is proposing to protect, because I mean, you're a celebrity, you're very popular, not just in Nigeria, but across Africa and in many other parts of the world. I mean, you could be vulnerable to someone taking advantage of you or saying things about you or not being able to back them up with facts. So my question to you is this: do you think social media in Nigeria should be regulated at all?
Wow, it's a heavy question, and honestly, I don't know if I have a one-size-fits-all answer. I've been, I've had false things spread about me, but I agree with Osai in saying that the real underlying sacred concept behind this is the freedom of speech, and it's something that we really have to think about. In my career, I've many times clashed heads with people in media. And honestly, at times, I have felt that if I had had the power to shut them down for saying something that about me that I didn't agree with, that I would have used it. And in retrospect, when the cortisol and adrenaline have left my spine and I'm back to thinking normally, I'm glad that I don't have that power. Because you see, as we evolve as a species, as we grow as a community, as a country, there are going to be people with different views, and people are going to share their ideas on politics, on religion. And a lot of times, people are going to say things that sound crazy. People are going to say things that are completely alien to your way of thinking or your way of doing things or your culture or your traditions or your religion. And it is a sign of maturity, it's a sign of growth as a society that we are able to respect, to consider openly, to debate ideas, to throw out the ones that don't work. And if you follow what's actually happening within the youth culture and social media, people that spread fake news are singled out, and they're sort of ostracized from the community for the period of time as a fake news spreader. The thing about it is that sacred concept is not something that I'm willing to tamper with. I don't know that we know how to deal with that. So it's easier, it's better, I think the answer for now is to say we should err on the side of free speech. We should let people say what they see, what they feel, what they're thinking about, whether it's against the government, whether it's against an artist, whether it's against whatever it is. And then we should do the work, and we can encourage society as we educate people to be more responsible with their rights. But to hand over the power, and for me, the reason why I come back to this is because the issue, for everyone watching, the issue has to be very clear, right? If you are in a system where there's power on one side and you're telling to that person that, hey, I'm going to give you the power to decide what the rest of us can say or to decide when the rest of us can talk, we need to be able to explicitly, and this situation should not even happen, but if it does have to happen, you need to be explicitly trust the person whom you are giving that power. And that trust is not there today. There's things that the young people have been fighting for. Our lawmakers should get involved in police reform and the End SARS movement. Young people are getting shut down all the time. These are important things. What about education? How many of our young people aren't in school across the country or aren't receiving quality education? There's so much work to be done. And young people are entrepreneurs that are lifting themselves up by their bootstraps, going online, having conversations, becoming internet influencers, spreading their music. This is a medium that's become so powerful and overwhelmingly has been for good. This is not, again, the bill that we are willing to, consider or accept in any way, shape, or form. For now, our stance is leave our social media alone, please. This is our way to hold you accountable, hold our lawmakers accountable. Again, I'm sorry I'm taking so long, but look at what happened. A sitting senator brutalized somebody online. Imagine if that person, if the story had come out before the video had come out, and the lawmaker said this is a fake story and shut down the internet. These are the sort of situations that we're going to allow to be possible if we allow this bill to pass. And to me, it's too dangerous to even consider.
Okay, well, we've just got about 20 seconds, so I'm going to take a break, but then we'll come back and we'll also hear from as they say in America, the other side of the Mason-Dixon line. You're watching the Arise interview, plenty more still ahead, as we continue our chat about Nigeria's controversial social media bill. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview. I'm Charles Aniagolu. Here in Nigeria, an attempt by the Senate to pass laws that would punish what the authorities call the publication of false stories on the internet has caused a huge uproar, especially and unsurprisingly on social media. A public hearing got underway earlier at the Nigerian National Assembly with tens of thousands of Nigerians, including dozens of celebrities and scores of civil society organizations, signing an online petition demanding that the bill be done away with. Opponents of the bill say the Senate claim that it wants to curb the spread of false information is untrue, and that in reality the government wants to limit freedom of speech and the rights of ordinary people to criticize those in authority. But some argue that there is a need to regulate social media in order to protect people from vicious and slanderous attacks on various platforms.
We ask ourselves is, what is falsehood? Is something false because the government doesn't like it, or is it false because nobody wants to accept that it is true? And I give you a very simple example. In this country, there was a time the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria was sick and dying. And we broke the news that he was terminally ill. It was described as false. If this bill had passed at that time, I'll be sitting in jail until that president would have died, because for 5 months, the man was brain dead. But nobody had the ability and the capacity to report it because it was described as false news. And that tells you that this bill is not about the protection of Nigerians, but the protector of those in power. It's as simple as ABC.
This bill itself is going to be a legislative overkill, because it will be duplication and over-regulation of a space that belongs to citizens. Second, of course, it contravenes provisions of international instruments. And these are reasons, and we completely align with these reasons.
People have been talking about the cybercrime, about the common law, that the extant laws have all these things. Yes, we know they are there. But why is it that today, in UK, in America, in Canada, they are all pushing to see how they can regulate misinformation and fake news? That's why the high data figures, Nigeria lacks data protection legislation. If a country like UAE can have such legislation like the United Kingdom does in its content protection, such laws as the Data Protection Act, which is an act of the United Kingdom Parliament passed in 1988, almost 3 decades ago. That's why having extant laws. Why should Nigeria not start regulating its internet operations in similar directions?
The two sides of the story there. Well, with me from our studios in Lagos, the popular Nigerian rapper Jude Abaga, known as Mr. Incredible, or MI. And with me here in Abuja, the country director of Amnesty International, Osai Ojigho. And we're also joined here in Abuja by a member of the Nigerian House of Representatives, Sergius Ogun. Thank you very much indeed for coming in. And let me come to you, Sergius, because you are a member of the National Assembly. And this is a bill that's currently going through the National Assembly. Where do you stand on it?
I'm against the bill. It's in the Senate right now. It hasn't come to the House. And as you might know, we have an understanding with the Senate. When they pass a bill, we sort of concord that we still go through the entire gamut of first reading, second reading, and all. But I'm against the bill. I don't think this is what we need right now.
Why are you against it? I mean, a lot of your colleagues are for it.
I don't know about that in the House, maybe the Senate, because there you have so many ex-governors and all of them. But for some
they're
of
all
us,
worried about the.
So for most of us in the House, I think we're against it, but it will come.
Right.
But I actually believe it's going to die.
But I mean, the big question is the consequences of free speech. Because even, I mean, the Nigerian constitution makes provision, I mean, guarantees free speech, I think sections, 45 and a couple of other sections. They make exceptions, even though they guarantee that free speech. I mean, that is as long as it doesn't infringe on other people's rights, freedoms, or violates what it calls public morality. So, I mean, what you're asking is that people should take responsibility for the consequence of the misinformation that is churned out on social media. And the fact is that sometimes these things lead to chaos in society. It leads to death. It leads to all kinds of people's rights being infringed upon, the very rights that you're trying to protect.
Yeah, but I think it's just laziness on the part of government, because this is over legislation. Section 59(1) of the Criminal Code already takes care of this. The punishment the senator is even asking for in this bill is 3 years imprisonment. It's the law today. So I think this is just a distraction. We should have been talking about, because if you have an active commissioner of information in the states, and in the federal you have an active minister of information, if any false information is put out there concerning the government, immediately you should respond. I remember all the present minister, like Mohammed, was doing in the days when we were in opposition. I'm very shocked that even APC that's bringing about this. APC senator and the government is in support.
Are you a member of the APC?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Yeah, see, that's why it's difficult most times. We say the public should speak up.
Right.
Look, I mean, civil society and the public. Because when you speak as an opposition party, there's of course is opposition. But this is going to affect everyone. I actually think they should have been talking about the National Orientation Agency. Actually had a bill in the 8th House to amend it, to make them get more funding. Now we are talking about coronavirus. Those in the rural areas that we represent are not even aware of this. So if you fund agencies like this, they will have money. They have offices in all the local government headquarters, in the state headquarters, state capitals, state capital. So why are we not funding them to disseminate information? We are here talking about those on social media. There are those in the villages that do not even know what's happening in this country. Then the NOA will help send down policies of government to the rural area. The biggest problem we have today is actually that. If there are no policies of government, they will key in. But we have lost them completely.
Right. Let me just make this point, which is very important, that we did try to get someone to represent the other side of the story, someone from the Senate, and at the last minute they declined to come in, citing the fact that they had lots of other things to worry about. So we did try to balance the story. But Osai Ojigho, this type of bill is not exclusive to Nigeria. I mean, other African countries, Uganda, Tanzania, Benin, South Africa, Egypt, have all clamped down on social media and internet activities. In all these countries, instances of falsehoods, fake news were cited as reasons for tightening control. And the bills in all these countries were all passed into law despite the widespread criticism. How much does that worry and alarm you as you protest against this social media bill in Nigeria?
I think we're in an era now that has been described as the post-truth era. And that's because people they've turned opinion into facts, and people want to control the kind of information people have, especially those who are in power. The uproar will continue to rise, and people will continue to challenge laws which are attacking their fundamental freedom. So no doubt about that. So even if it has succeeded in some countries, other countries will still continue to rise and complain and agitate about it. And we've also seen how things have turned around. Look at Ethiopia, for example. A couple of years ago, they introduced a NGO bill that clamped down civil society hugely. But now you can see with the new government in place, there are certain steps they're taking already to try and retrace their steps. The question which our legislators should be asking themselves that, would you be on the good side of history when the time comes? And you don't need to get to a situation whereby you've created so much harm and then you're trying to reverse it. So back to the question you raised, you placed emphasis on control. If truly we want to manage the incidents of fake news and we're looking to regulation, we should look at what is it that we have already in existence in Nigeria. And it's not just about laws, it's also about institutions, the church, the mosques, the schools, the national orientation agencies. These are institutions that socially have the powers and the influence and the reach which even social media and the internet do not have. How are we beginning to emphasize values and education that brings someone a complete package? That is something we should be looking at. The other thing again is that in the hands of the wrong person, this bill would create even a more disastrous situation than we already have. In the country today, security is the biggest issue and the biggest priority. And even though under the Constitution, national security is one of the ways through which freedom of expression can be limited. But even the Constitution and the ICCPR, that's the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, gives specific circumstances when such an excuse or an exception can be given to say, okay, for this period, we're going to limit who is disseminating and how information is going. And it's not forever. It's for a certain period of time. It must serve a legitimate purpose. It must be proportional. So the risk of you tampering with something so fundamental compared to the risk that will come as a result of the national security issue that you are facing must be proportional. You cannot say because someone is sharing news about what is happening in one part of the country, you clamp it down. It should be news that would affect directly the killing, the insurgency, for example, that you should be concerned about. So it's an overkill, and it is more about control rather than regulation, and rather than assessing the root causes of what the challenges are. Law should be a tool for social engineering. Law should not impose upon us an heavier burden than we are willing and able to create, to absorb. And we should also recognize that if people can't express themselves, then what happens? It goes underground. And the very thing that you're trying to prevent, which is people who disagree or who are trying to incite trouble, it becomes even harder for the security agencies to prevent, and will now be in a bigger situation than we started with.
Okay, we'll continue this chat in a minute. You're watching the Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead as we continue our discussion about Nigeria's controversial social media bill. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview. I'm Charles Onyegoldo. Now, Nigeria's controversial social media bill has gone for a public hearing at the Senate, with top celebrities as well as scores of civil society organizations joining hundreds of thousands of Nigerians in raising the alarm over the controversial bill. They say it's a major threat to free speech in Nigeria and will roll back internet freedoms in the country. But supporters of the bill insist that an overhaul of the country's internet laws will curtail fake news and the spreading of false statements whilst enhancing security, peace and unity. A campaign on Twitter saw the Say No to Social Media Bill hashtag top the platform's trending charts in Nigeria recently. But despite the opposition, the legislation has continued its passage through Nigeria's legislature, passing a second reading and subsequent vote in the Senate. It has now moved to the open discussion stage, which allows for citizens' concerns over the effect of the bill to be aired. With me from our studios in Lagos, the popular Nigerian rapper Jude Abaga, known as Mr. Incredible or MI, and with me here in Abuja, the country director of Amnesty International, Osai Ojigho, and we're also joined by a member of the Nigerian House of Representatives, Sergius Ogun. And let me go to you in Lagos, MI. Because from the angle of law enforcement, you talked about the police and what they were doing to young people in Nigeria today. Do you know if the police get a lot of complaints from people about what's happening on social media? Things like harassment, threats, posting of nude or compromising pictures of another person? Because I heard a police chap on the radio saying that they do get those things and they don't know how to handle them because they haven't got any laws to deal with them.
So if I understand your question well, you're asking if there are police cases that are reported for investigation about fake news incidences that will happen on the internet. Again, from my understanding, I believe that we do have the laws in place today for these sort of incidences to be investigated and people brought to book. I mean, there's always, when you talk about police in Nigeria as a young person, there's always the double-edged sword to say that, social media has been very instrumental in holding the police accountable. Many times before any DPO, any police rep has spoken out about something that's happened to a young person, it's been social media people. It's been people on social media that have been there, that have recorded on their phones, that have reported cases. And so it's sort of like a chicken and egg situation when police are saying, hey, we want to help protect you from this social media thing, but you're not accountable in protecting us from yourselves, and I agree completely with when Osai said it's, using a hammer to kill a mosquito. We have serious problems. I think young people agree that, that if somebody's doing something criminal on social media, they should be brought to the book using the laws that we have today. But for now, we need social media for business, but more importantly, for our right to free speech, to protest, to hold the police accountable, to hold government officials accountable, and to speak truth to power when the time comes.
Let me bring you in, Honorable Sergius Ogun there, because when these people go to the police, and I heard the police saying this, the expectation is that the police will solve their problem. But the police have said that if there are no enabling laws in place, then they can't help. And it is the view of the police that there should be specific provisions that will make people safe on social media. Does that count for anything, that the police are calling for some sort of regulation that they can enforce that targets the users of social media if they step out of line?
Well, I don't agree with that at all. I actually think we say a lot about the Nigerian police. Well, I want to appreciate the police. We have barely 300,000 policemen for a country of over 200 million people. But I also have said repeatedly, if we can train the so-called 300,000 policemen, train them well and equip them, they might achieve something. But as it is right now, they are not properly trained, they are not properly remunerated. So they are not equipped to do a whole lot. The laws we have right now are enough to take care of this, but they are not trained. We have the NIA, we have the Department of State Security, we have the CID under the police. With all this, we are still talking about laws that will help them achieve what? The laws are there already. They should train the policemen and equip them, and then they should be able to perform their duties.
Right, okay, but let me ask you this, Osai Ojigho. Wouldn't it be good if there was a law that states that if you try to advertise, for example, what you don't have in order to swindle people of their money on social media, in other words, scamming people on the internet, that sort of thing, or if you were jilted by your boyfriend or girlfriend, you decide to post a nude photo of that person on social media, that the police can arrest such a person? I mean, isn't that a good thing? There's a specific provision in the law that takes care of that?
The thing is, even the Constitution that talks about human rights was enacted when? And then it as amended 1999. You would find that new things keep coming up, but we still put the issues within the framing of the fundamental human rights and freedoms. even impersonating, obtaining money, obtaining funds by false pretenses, section 419. That's what made 419 so popular of the criminal code. And even in the Cyber Crimes Act, which still has its own issues, it specifically provides in one of the sections about you transmitting nude pictures of people and embarrassing them online. And there have been complaints that have been made by people who have suffered these acts. The issue is, it's like the whole gamut of Nigeria's problems with the law enforcement and judicial system. People make a complaint, but it does not get all the way to the courts and all the way to judgment. Because after a while, the delays, people drop off along the way. And if I were to support what the Honorable just shared as well, training is important. And I think this bill is also coming from a point of fear. People don't understand social media, they don't understand internet, they don't understand computers, technology. That's why a policeman or a SARS official will tell a young man, so boot your computer, switch on your phone. I want to access, I want to check things and stuff. Because if they know, and if they have the tools, and they have the appropriate court orders to search and fish out information, they will know what to do. So we're using force, we're using torture, we're using methods that are very repressive, very antagonistic in order to get information. So we cannot allow that to continue. And we should say that when people have been given a job to do, they should do it well. If they feel that there are gaps in their knowledge and in their skills, they should express that rather than hide behind the law to say, we need a law in order to do our work better. The laws that currently exist, are you doing your work better at the moment? And the fear that people have when they come and approach you for help, has that fear been assuaged? If the answer to these questions are no, then we need to fix our problems first before we start formulating new ones through this sort of repressive legislation.
Well, let me go to Lagos and get a final word from MI. And I want to thank you for joining us, by the way. And I know you've got a new album out. It would have been jolly nice to talk about that album, but this is a slightly different topic. But we hope you will come back in the not too distant future and talk about your extraordinary musical career and the great things that you've been doing in that direction. But we've got about 30 seconds. A final word from you about this controversial social media bill.
My final word is just to the Honorable that's sitting there. I like his optimism that the bill will not pass, and I want to ginger him that they do the needful if indeed the bill does make it to them. You know, we're behind you, sir.
Okay, MI in Lagos, Mr. Incredible, otherwise known as Judah Bagger, and of course Osai Ojigho, Country Director of Amnesty International, and the Honourable Member of the Nigerian House of Representatives, Sergio Sogun. Thank you very much indeed. Brilliant chat.
Thank you for having me.
That's it for this edition of the Arise interview. Join us again tomorrow from me and the entire team here in Abuja and Lagos. Bye-bye, and thank you for watching.